Hi guys! So far on this channel, I've mostly talked about Planet Zoo, and so something you may not know about me is that I am a massive Jurassic Park fan, and I've also put quite a few hours into Jurassic World Evolution too. If you didn't see, a while back it was confirmed that Frontier will once again be collaborating with Universal on another Jurassic game. It's not confirmed to be called Jurassic World Evolution 3, but we can assume it will be another Evolution sequel, or at least a spiritual successor in a similar creative management style, since that's what Frontier has publicly decided to focus on. With the release of the Park Manager's Collection Pack, support for Jurassic World Evolution 2 is almost definitely over. I don't see us getting any more DLCs, especially with this new game on the horizon, which means Evolution 2 has ended with a roster of 122 prehistoric species. That's a very impressive number, but there are still a lot of species that didn't make it into Evolution 2 that I would like to see included in a third game. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. As a little disclaimer, I am not a full-blown paleontology nerd. I'm just a pretty casual dinosaur fan with an interest in the prehistoric. Wikipedia was my best friend when writing this video, so if I mispronounce any names or get any of the terminology wrong, please forgive me and feel free to educate down below. I also want to say now there will be no Cenozoic animals on this list, even though I think it makes a lot of sense for them to finally be included in a third Evolution game as a new hook to get people to come back. Mammals and other Cenozoic species are just such a big can of worms, and they would easily dominate this entire list if I included them, so I think I'll save them for another video. Do let me know if you'd be interested in one all about the Cenozoic animals that I think are likely to be added. Okay. Without further ado, this is my personal list of the top 25 prehistoric creatures that I would like to see in Jurassic World Evolution 3. Coming in at the bottom of my list is Psittacosaurus. This is a small ceratopsian from early Cretaceous Asia. It would fill a similar niche to the Microceratus, although it is a bit bigger in size, and this species is really interesting because we actually know quite a lot about what it looked like. From very well-preserved fossils, we know this species had prominent countershading and long quills on its tail. Psittacosaurus already has a great depiction in Prehistoric Kingdom, and so I would love to see Frontier's design for this dinosaur. At number 24 is our first land creature that isn't actually a dinosaur, which is a group of animals that Evolution 2 barely scratched the surface of. I was introduced to this species through Prehistoric Planet, which will be a common theme on this list. It's the adorable Cymosuchus. These guys are from late Cretaceous Madagascar, and like I said, Cymosuchus is not a dinosaur, it's a crocodiliform, but unlike what you'd expect from a relative of crocodiles, Cymosuchus was not semi-aquatic, and it is actually a herbivore. These interesting little guys made quite an impression on me in Prehistoric Planet, so I'd be very happy to see them appear in an Evolution game. Next up is our first carnivore, Saurophaganax. This is a large allosauride from the late Jurassic United States. There's actually some contention as to whether Saurophaganax is really just a species of Allosaurus, but I don't think that's something that should deter its inclusion in a third game, considering the first two had Pachycephalosaurus, Stygimoloch, and Dracorax, all of which are suspected to actually be the same species. So yeah, I would still love to see Saurophaganax, and in Evolution 2, I especially love the brightly colored, heavily patterned carnivore designs, so I'd hope Frontier's depiction of this large carnivore would lean in that direction to help distinguish it from Allosaurus. Next, we have another carnivore, the Dromaeosaurus. This species is from the North American late Cretaceous, and it also made an appearance in Prehistoric Planet. Dromaeosaurus is the namesake of the Dromaeosaurids, the group that includes Velociraptor, Deinonychus, and so on. So yes, I basically just want another raptor, but specifically another feathered, paleo-accurate one. Pyroraptor was obviously a step in the right direction by finally introducing feathers to these animals through Dominion, but then Evolution 2 gave us the Utah raptor, which is just gorgeous. I'd love getting Dromaeosaurus to have a second raptor with a design on par with Utah's, but with the fantastically vibrant skins of Pyroraptor. Rounding out this little stretch of theropods, we have Yangchuanosaurus. This dinosaur is from late Jurassic China and is a Metriacanthosaurid. Like Saurophaganax, I just think Yangchuanosaurus would be a great pick for another large carnivore with some good potential for really strong patterning and vibrant colors. I don't know a lot about this species, so I don't have much to add, but I will say it had a figure in the Dominion toy line, which is a design I actually quite like, so I wouldn't mind if Frontier took some inspiration from that. Number 20, and our first aviary species, is Pterodostro. This is a very unique looking pterosaur from early Cretaceous South America, which had these really long, thin teeth like bristles or needles, which it would have used for filter feeding. This species is so delightfully weird, I'd love to have it for some great pterosaur variety, although I will say I'm a bit nervous about a Frontier design for Pterodostro, since they really nerfed the weirdness of Barbaridactylus. That's number 19.5, Barbaridactylus redesign, to give it its weird crest. Pterodostro being known for filter feeding also means it would probably require its own unique feeder, but that's not impossible considering we got an insectivore feeder exclusively for J-Holopterus. Let's get back into some more land non-dinosaurs because there are so many that I think would be cool to have. Number 19 is Postosuchus. This is a large reptile from the North American late Triassic. I would really love to see some more Triassic representation in these games, and I think that Postosuchus would be a great pick to do that while, like I said, also adding some more non-dinosaur representation that isn't a pterosaur or a marine species. This is a bit of a silly pick, but one I just had to include because of how deeply I fell in love with this species in Prehistoric Planet. It's Beelzebufo, the devil frog. The largest species of frog to ever exist, Beelzebufo is from late Cretaceous Madagascar, and it probably gobbled up whatever it could fit in its mouth, which included tiny dinosaurs. My justification for adding this species is the fact we got such tiny animals in evolution too, like Compsognathus and Microceratus, and Beelzebufo isn't far off from them in terms of size. Plus, it would just be so unique and different from anything else in the roster. I could maybe see it being a second species to use that insectivore feeder. Next up is Edaphosaurus, a synapsid that lived in North America and Europe during the early Permian, the same time as Dimetrodon. Edaphosaurus is very similar in appearance to Dimetrodon, but it's actually a herbivore that Dimetrodon likely hunted. I think it's a really interesting animal for that reason, looking so similar to its predator. And of course, it would give us more Permian representation and give the Dimetrodon some synapsid company in the roster. Staying in the Permian for a second, next up is Inostransavia, a big carnivorous therapsid from late Permian Russia and southern Africa. I really just wanted to throw in another Permian species to bring the number up to 4. We have Dimetrodon and Lystrosaurus. I've just proposed Edaphosaurus, and when looking through other Permian species, I really just felt Inostransavia would be the coolest to have. I've seen some interpretations of this animal fully naked and some interpretations with fur, so I'm not sure what route Frontier would go with the design. Personally, I'd go for at least a bit of fur to help make the species unique and differentiate it from the other Permian animals. Finally, back to an actual dinosaur, number 15 is the elephant in the room. It had to be on here somewhere. It's Beccles-Spinax, or Altospinax, whatever you want to call it. This species is now a must-have inclusion, considering it's currently the only living on-screen dinosaur missing from the Evolution 2 roster as of Season 1 of Chaos Theory. I imagine that in the early days of Evolution 3, we'll get a Chaos Theory dinosaur pack, just like how we got a Camp Cretaceous dinosaur pack pretty early on in Evolution 2's lifespan. The Beccles-Spinax will probably be the face of that Chaos Theory DLC, which should also add variants for the Pachyrhinosaurus and the Suchomimus, and then any other new additions that come in later seasons of Chaos Theory. Anyway, this large carnivore lived in England during the early Cretaceous. As for the whole name confusion, even though my understanding is that Altospinax is technically correct, I think in-game it would need to be called Beccles-Spinax, since that's what they use in Chaos Theory, making it the name that's canon to the Jurassic universe. Next up is our first lagoon creature on this list. I feel like there's a lot of potential for more animal diversity in lagoons, and so to start off, I'm proposing we get a species of ammonite. A lot of different ammonites were featured in Prehistoric Planet, but I'd go with a pretty traditional looking species, and then maybe further in the game's lifespan, we could get some of the weirder looking ammonites. The show actually featured an unnamed species with speculative bioluminescence, which was really cool to see, and I love Evolution 2's Lux, Styxosaurus, and Nothosaurus, so I would love it if Frontier also gave an Ammonite a Lux skin. The thing is, the bioluminescent species in Prehistoric Planet was actually really tiny, if I'm remembering correctly, and I think the one picked for Evolution 3 should be of a decent size, so officially I'm gonna go with Sphenodiscus, which had a large global distribution during the late Cretaceous. In Prehistoric Planet, they're referred to as tiger ammonites, so I also think it'd be cool if in Evolution 3 their shells had striped patterning as a little reference. Another lagoon species, number 13, is Camaraoceras. This animal is also a prehistoric cephalopod like ammonites, but it's unique because of its length and the era which it comes from. Camaraoceras lived way back in the equatorial oceans of the Ordovician period, placing it even earlier than the likes of Dunkleosteus, which holds the record in Evolution 2 as the earliest prehistoric species in the roster. I think it'd be exciting to have more creatures from these really early periods of the Paleozoic era, and Camaraoceras has such an interesting appearance with its obnoxiously long shell. I'd love for it to be the representative of the Ordovician. Number 12, coming from late Cretaceous China, is the gigantic Shantungosaurus. This animal is special because it holds the record as the largest species of hadrosaur ever discovered. This thing was huge and rivaled the largest carnivores in terms of size, which I think would make it a really cool inclusion. I will say though, this is one of those herbivores that I'd love to see actually hold its own and fight back when being hunted by carnivores, because it'd be a little silly seeing them take down something of this sheer size, which is a system that I think would need to be reworked for a third game. Edmontosaurus has some of my favorite skins in Evolution 2, so I'd love to see Shantungosaurus get a similar treatment. Irritator is a medium-sized spinosaurid from early Cretaceous Brazil. If added, it would be the roster's fourth spinosaurid and the smallest representative from the group. Its name is actually very funny because it comes from the word irritation. This species was discovered from an almost complete skull that was then damaged and tampered with by fossil dealers, which left paleontologists very irritated. I find this very funny, and also I just want another Spinosaurid in the game because I love them. I didn't do much research into it, but apparently there's reason to speculate that Irritator had this weird split jaw, so that might be something cool and different to see implemented in an evolution design. While we're on the topic of Spinosaurids, I also want to throw out how much I love a paleo-accurate Spinosaurus variant, like the design in Prehistoric Kingdom. Make it happen, Frontier. We are now in the top 10. Kicking us off is Hatzegopteryx, a very large pterosaur from late Cretaceous Romania and an Asdarchid like Quetzalcoatlus and Thanatos dracon. The species was featured heavily in Prehistoric Planet, which I think gave it a great design. Even though in reality, Hatzegopteryx was around the same size as Quetzalcoatlus, the Evolution 2 Quetz is so oversized, I could see Frontier using this species as a middle ground between the Quetz and Thanatos dracon. This Asdarchid has been requested for so long, I was genuinely baffled when Frontier picked Thanatos dracon over Hatzegopteryx for the park manager's collection pack. Austroraptor is another species featured in Prehistoric Planet that I found really fascinating. From late Cretaceous Argentina, this is another large dromaeosaurid around the size of Utahraptor, but it's unique in that it's suspected to be a piscivore, or at least for fish to have been a large part of its diet. I just think it'd be cool to have a raptor that's special in some way and able to use a fish feeder. We could build swampy, almost semi-aquatic habitats for them, and like I said with Dromaeosaurus, it'd just be great to get another beautifully designed, paleo-accurate raptor. Another ancient marine species that I'd like to see, and one of my personal favorites, is Anomalocaris. This animal is a radiodont, a very distant relative of modern-day shrimp and other crustaceans. It was found worldwide, dating all the way back to the Cambrian period, making Anomalocaris the oldest animal that I'm suggesting for Evolution 3. I just think these guys are really funny looking and endearing, and as I've said before, they'd offer some great diversity for the types of lagoon animals at our disposal. I will say that upon further research, Anomalocaris is apparently much smaller than I thought it was, and would probably get lost in our lagoons if Frontier stuck with its realistic size, but that doesn't stop me from still wanting to see it. In my mind, Protoceratops is such a staple ceratopsian that I'm genuinely surprised how little representation it's had within the Jurassic franchise. The fact it never made it into Evolution 2 is really surprising to me. Coming from late Cretaceous Asia, Protoceratops was a small animal that lived alongside Velociraptor, and there's speculation it may have had quills on its tail like Psittacosaurus. It was given a fantastic design in Prehistoric Kingdom, and so I'd love to see what Frontier would do with this species. Another creature with great representation in Prehistoric Kingdom is Microraptor, a small flying dromaeosaurid from early Cretaceous China. I think Microraptor would be a wonderful addition to our aviaries because it's so unique from the other pterosaurs in the fact that it's not a pterosaur, it's a dinosaur. Microraptor is also very visually interesting because it's an animal with 4 wings. Its legs were fully feathered just like its arms to use for flight. It is pretty small, but I'm a big fan of Jeholopterus and the tiny Dimorphodon variant, so I'd be happy to get another small aviary species. There were several animals featured in Prehistoric Planet that I found very cute and immediately fell in love with, like Cymosuchus and Beelzebufo, but there is another one that I want to spotlight. Number 5 is Mononychus, a very tiny, very unique theropod from late Cretaceous Asia. Its name literally means one claw because it has these weird, specialized arms sporting just one claw each. Mononychus was speculated to be an insectivore, and so it could probably use the insectivore feeder, but more ideally, Evolution 3 would introduce enrichment items for our animals, and Mononychus could maybe feed from a placeable termite mound. Number 4 is another much-needed representative of the Triassic period, Plateosaurus. This prosauropod lived in Europe during the late Triassic, and being an ancestor of sauropods, was a mid-sized herbivore but one of the largest land species to live during the Triassic. Plateosaurus is another animal that was recently added to Prehistoric Kingdom and given a wonderful design. Above all else, I think of this species alongside Coelophysis and Herrerasaurus as a staple of the Triassic period, so I'd just love to see it included. Number 3 is my most requested lagoon species, one that I'm surprised we never saw in Evolution 2 after the door was opened by the introduction of the lagoon rock platform. We got a big prehistoric turtle, give us a big prehistoric crocodile. For this spot, I've gone with Sarcosuchus, which is a huge crocodilomorph from early Cretaceous Africa and South America. I went back and forth between Sarcosuchus and Deinosuchus, but I felt like the species to go with should be the largest, and my understanding is Sarcosuchus is the one that holds that title. Both are huge and very cool though, and I'd love to have them both. Like I said, I think Sarcosuchus would work fine in the lagoons as they are, as long as it's able to use the rock platform like Archelon and Nothosaurus. Although ideally, Evolution 3 would introduce some sort of mechanic like a ramp that allows semi-aquatic lagoon creatures to exit a lagoon into an attached habitat. That way we can see Sarcosuchus properly walk around on land. At number 2 is my most requested aviary species, another iconic animal that I'm a bit baffled about never making it into Evolution 2. It's the one and only Archaeopteryx. Archaeopteryx comes from late Jurassic Germany and is another species featured beautifully in Prehistoric Kingdom. This dinosaur is often considered to be the earliest known bird and was very important for paleontology and our understanding of the relationship between birds and dinosaurs. Frontier has proven how well they can do feathers, and between Archaeopteryx and Microraptor, I think it would be great to get some fully feathered species in the aviary with wings more like a bird's rather than a bat's. With the franchise's obsession to always go bigger with its animals, it only makes sense for my number 1 spot to be the species often regarded as the biggest dinosaur ever. Argentinosaurus would be a wonderful addition to the roster as an absolute titan of a sauropod. If you couldn't guess, this species comes from Argentina during the late Cretaceous. I often find myself building these giant herbivore habitats and wanting to throw in a huge sauropod for some really dynamic height variation, and when that happens, I always go with Dreadnoughtus. I would love to have a sauropod that's even bigger though. My understanding is that these titanosaurs were actually quite similar in size, but hey, Jurassic has a history of oversizing Mosasaurus and Quetzalcoatlus, so let's just say I wouldn't be mad if they were a little generous with the size of Argentinosaurus. I also want to emphasize that it needs to have great skins. The sauropod skins in Evolution 2 are notoriously not great, but the Brachiosaurus variant was an excellent step in the right direction, and I'd want them to push that even further and let me make a really vibrant, heavily patterned, gorgeous Argentinosaurus. And that's my list. Do let me know if you agree or disagree with any of my picks, and tell me which animals you want most, whether they're covered here or not. Also, do let me know if you'd be interested in a video all about Cenozoic species, which, like I said, I think are very likely additions for a third Jurassic World Evolution. If you're a Planet Zoo fan, please check out my videos on that game. I have another one in the works. And yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.